Hey, and I'm thrilled to be joined now by the New York Post editor-at-large. You know her well, Kelly Jane Torrance. Thanks so much for coming on tonight. Now, I got to talk to you about this one here because you were born in Canada. You're from Canada. You live in America now. And I want to talk to you about President Trump's claims that Canada is considering becoming the 51st state in exchange for being included within the Golden Dome missile defense program. Kelly Jane Torrance, tell us about this. Is there any truth to the idea that Canadians are considering this, or will they just simply go it alone when it comes to the Golden Dome?
On the whole, most Canadians, James, are not considering this. And certainly they just elected Prime Minister Mark Carney, who told Trump in the White House that Canada is definitely not going to become the 51st state and never will. Now, of course, we've got some progress here because Trump is finally offering a little more for giving us statehood. Before it was sort of just the tariffs. He wasn't really putting a lot on the table. Now he's putting the Golden Dome on the table. He said it's going to be $60 billion if you are a sovereign country, and free if you become our cherished 51st state. So he's, finally offering something up in the deal. But I can tell you where I'm from, Alberta is one of the few places where, I think a lot of people would welcome being that 51st state. And actually, there's always been a separatist movement in Alberta. And it's really heated up in the last, number of months, especially since Donald Trump has stirred the pot, so to speak. I love how Donald Trump did this just after King Charles, of course, opened Parliament, which is the first time a sovereign's done so in Canada for 50 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just with that Alberta thing, just tell us about Alberta a little bit, because this is a very resource-rich province of Canada, and I think there's probably some states in Australia that might feel the same way about their federation, our federation here. They've got a lot of resources, a lot of money, and they're kind of sick of subsidizing everybody else. Is that kind of the angle that Donald Trump is playing?
Well, I don't know if he knows as much about Alberta as you do, James, but you're exactly right. I call Alberta the Texas of Canada. It has a lot of cattle. It has a lot of oil. And people there tend to be more conservative than the rest of the country. The capital, Edmonton, is where I'm from, and it's a bit like Austin, Texas, so a little, wobbly university town, government town, but even there you are electing a lot of conservative members of parliament just in the last election. So yeah, Alberta, I try to explain to Americans, trust me, you don't want all of Canada. You just want some of it. And making Alberta the 51st state would be wise. Alberta pays far more into Confederation than it gets back. Quebec, of course, famously gets a lot more back than it pays in. So it would really be a win for Albertans. So, I've got to get in Donald Trump's ear and explain to him, trust me, you only want the resource-rich, good part of Canada, as I might call it. But, I've been in America more than 20 years, but I'm a proud Western Canadian and proud Albertan still.
Yeah, fair enough. You don't want those far lefties on the East Coast screwing up the Electoral College vote. But hey, absolutely. Hey, on to some other news here, because there's so much news going on this week, and so much of it is being misreported here. And Elon Musk has announced his departure from the Trump administration through the DOGE program. But this is the thing here that I find kind of wild here. Everybody is acting like there's this big Musk-Trump split, when Musk was employed under a certain amount of time as a special government employee that times out. So this idea that there's some huge rift between Musk and Trump doesn't seem to, hold water, even though DOGE seems to have left an awful lot of work undone when it comes to, getting some sort of hold over the vast octopus of American government spending.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, James. You're one of the few sensible commentators on American politics.
I try.
Australia is lucky to have you there. But, I look at all the other media, and obviously exception of the New York Post and some others like Sky News Australia. But so many outlets are saying, Trump and Musk have had this big fight. Elon Musk criticized the big, beautiful bill, and oh my gosh, he's leaving. Doge, and it's a huge split. No, this he had told everyone he had to leave because he only had 130 days as a special government employee, and that time was up at the end of May. This was planned months ago. And, both of them had repeatedly noted that. But, the media love a good story that fits their narrative, so they're ignoring that. And the headlines are making it look like there's some big fight between them. No. And of course, as you say, Doge's work really is not finished. It's one of those things that's, you kind of wonder if it'll ever be finished, given how vast the American federal government is. So, we've heard that Trump and his cabinet will now be the primary enactors of the Doge philosophy, and will be looking at ways to cut their departments and, the rest of the federal government. But the media's been, it's just the media will media. Yeah.
They've got their work cut out for them, cutting all of those crazy programs and everything. But hey, speaking of crazy programs, one of the other things we've been talking a lot about on this show tonight is higher education. But there's rot throughout the education system in America, and I was really struck by this story about San Francisco's education department, which was forced into a U-turn after publicity got generated around a woke equity grading program, which would have seen homework and weekly testing scrapped and would have allowed students to pass with scores as low as 41%. Now, there's been backlash, but this idea of equity, whenever we hear the word equity, not equality, equity, it always rings alarm bells. I mean, how big a problem is this in Democrat jurisdictions, this sort of woke education where kids don't grow up actually knowing how to do anything?
Yeah, when you hear the word equity, James, run. If it has anything to do with you or any of your family, it's crazy. But this is San Francisco, of course, one of the most liberal cities in America, but it's not the only one. And this rot, as you call it, has infected schools across the country. We've seen, even here in New York City and other cities, efforts to do this sort of thing, not quite as all at once and as blatant as maybe the San Francisco plan, but it's certainly there. And it's really sad because it claims that it's aiming to help disadvantaged kids. It says, well, some kids have trouble making it to school. They don't have a good place to do their homework. So we're just going to, make it easier for them to pass. Well, how about educating those children instead? How about not giving up on them? It's really just shameful that the teachers' unions are always in support of these things because, of course, they don't like tests because tests show how much the kids have learned from them every year. And it's got scary. And so these programs are just awful because when they say equity, what they mean is we're not going to try to teach the disadvantaged kids. We're just going to let them skate through. And then,
absolutely,
what? So end up in prison rather than in a career. It's shameful, James.
And that's how you wind up perpetuating disadvantage. Kelly Jane Torrance, thank you so much for joining me.